So for those who just came in, I just want to repeat one more time that today we are finishing up the last section of the unit. And then tomorrow which will be Thursday, April 22nd, we will be reviewing. And then on Friday, April 23rd, we will be taking our first test for this quarter, Unit 4. Okay, so that's the timeline that we are looking at. Okay, so without further ado, let's get started. So please take out your notes, and I'm going to share the notes right now. Does anybody have any questions about where we are in terms of what we're going to do today, tomorrow, and this week? Okay, let's get started. Just one more. Okay, so first of all, let's go over on what we did yesterday. I don't know if you've gotten this topic. I've got another class, which is second period. Some students did have a hard time with it. And so I just want to take a little bit more time to talk about it and review, okay? Now, towards the end of the class yesterday, I drew some pictures, and I hope this will be helpful to maybe some of you or hopefully all of you, okay? So let me talk about that. Now, here we have 45 degree right triangle, okay? There are two things that I want you to remember, okay? One, that two sides, two legs, two non-hypotenuse sides, which is this side and this side, they are the same, okay? If I give you that this is a 6, the other side is going to be 6. If this is a 7, the other side is also going to be 7. They are equal to each other. Do you understand that? Okay. If this is 5.2, then the other side is going to be 5.2. Hopefully you got the point. Okay. So they are the same. The challenge is to figure out the hypotenuse, or maybe I will give you the measurement for the hypotenuse and then figure out the shorter side of legs, okay? So we call that leg, and then hypotenuse. So let's explore. Let's say if you do know the height of leg, let's say leg is like a 5 inches. How do you find the hypotenuse? Does anybody remember how to do that? If you know the leg, how do you find hypotenuse? You need to multiply something, right? It's either you multiply or divide. In this case, you're going from short, leg is shorter than hypotenuse, right? So you're going from leg, and then you want to find out the longer side, which is the hypotenuse. So you have to multiply. Now, what do you multiply by? You're going to multiply by square root of 2. Okay. Now, if you do know the hypotenuse, how do you get back to the leg? How do you find the leg? In this case, you're going to divide by square root of 2. That's it, okay? This is it for 45 right triangle. Because the other two legs are the same. So it's either to find the hypotenuse or to find the leg, okay? So to find the hypotenuse, you multiply by square root of 2. To find the leg, you divide by square root. Does that make sense? So if this is helpful to you, please write it down in your notes, okay? Now the other one, which is the 30-60 right triangle, that one has a little bit more to do. So let's draw that. Somebody just came in. So for 30 and 60 triangle, there are two pairs of going back and forth. One is from this short leg it's either for the short leg to hypotenuse relationship or short leg to long leg relationship. You never try to figure out long leg directly to hypotenuse. There is no ratio for that. Well, actually there is, but we don't do that, okay? You always work with short leg to hypotenuse or short leg to long leg, okay? Now, let's explore the short leg to hypotenuse. If you do know the short leg, let's change the color. If you know the short leg, but you want to find the hypotenuse, do you guys remember what you need to do? Can you take out your notes and see what it says? What's the relationship between short leg and the hypotenuse for a 30-60 right triangle? It is double or half relationship. So you multiply by 2. So if short leg is a 5, hypotenuse will be 10. If short leg is 6, hypotenuse is 12. If short leg is 7, hypotenuse is 14. Yeah, you got the point? Hypotenuse is always double of short leg. Now, what if you do know the hypotenuse, but you want to get back to short leg? Then what do you think you have to do? You have to divide by 2. If short leg, hypotenuse is, let's say, 20, then what's the short leg? Short leg is going to be 10. If hypotenuse is 16, what's going to be the short leg? Short leg is going to be 8. It's always half of hypotenuse. Okay. Now, the other thing that you need to remember, or make sure that you have this in your notes, it's about short leg and a long leg relationship. If you, let's say you do know the short leg, but let's say you want to find out long leg. What do you think you have to do? You're going to multiply what? Multiply by square root of 3. Get that? And if you, let's say you know the long leg, but you want to figure out short leg, what do you think you have to do? You have to divide by square root of 3. Okay, does that make sense? So there are basically 3 relationships. You multiply, divide by square root of 2. That has to do with 45, 45 right triangle. Then double, multiply by 2 or divide by 2. Multiply by square root of 3 or divide by square root of 3. That's for the 30, 60 right triangle. Okay. So please write this down. I don't know, maybe this is kind of new thing that I've developed yesterday. It just kind of came to me of presenting the rules in this way. So I hope this is helpful. It's always square root of 3 for that particular relationship for between short leg and the long leg. The typical mistake is that you make a mistake on square root of 2 or just 2, okay? Just 2, this is for the 30-60 right triangle. But if it is a 45-45, it's always square root of 2, okay? So you need to remember that. That's right, just for 30-60 right triangle, you do square root of 3. For example, let's do one example here. So let's say this is 10. You want to figure out X and Y, okay? That would be, this could be, well be your test question. Short leg is vertical and the long leg. That's right. Now, thing is, on the test or quizzes or assignment, I may not just write this in this way. I could write this like this. Here is a 90 degree. This is a 60 and this is 30. I could write that. Would everybody recognize that these two triangles are the same thing? Would you recognize that? Yeah, these are the same thing. So I could ask this. Okay, let's actually do this one right here instead. Okay, I just rotated or I just tipped this triangle, didn't I? Right? This was 10, I just tipped it. Now you've got that. So I need to figure out X and Y. Now, what is the, now, again, remember, hypotenuse is always the opposite side from 90 degree. So Y is actually the hypotenuse, okay? So this is X and 10, they are legs, okay? Two more people just came in. So we are talking about, this is leg, short leg. This is the short leg, and this one is a long leg. So we're talking about this square root of 3 relationship. Now, how do you go from 10 to find out X? Well, in this case, because you're going from long leg to short leg, we have to divide by square root of 3. So the X is 10 divided by square root of 3, which is, let's take out a calculator. Does it make sense, guys? It's 5.8. Okay. Now we just found that this is a 5.8. How do you figure out the hypotenuse? Now, short leg to hypotenuse, it's double, isn't it? So you're going to do 5.8 times 2. or just keep that in the calculator and just double that, 11.5, or maybe 11.6, whichever is fine. How are you guys feeling? You feel a little bit more confident? See some question there. Did I answer all of your question? What question do you have? Anybody? You can mute, or maybe don't quite know what to ask. I don't know where you guys are at. Let's do another one. Okay. Let me give you another question. So here's 9. Okay, we can do that. Can we do this one first? Yeah. If 9 is given to you, can you figure out what x is? How do you go from 9 to x? What do you have to do? This is a 45, 45. And if you look at this notes right here, for 45, 45, you have to multiply or divide by square root of 2. Do you multiply it or do you divide it? In this case, you are going from 9 is a hypotenuse, isn't it? So you're going from hypotenuse to the leg. In other words, it's this one right here. Hypotenuse to leg. So you are going to divide by square root of 2. So x will be 9 divided by square root of 2, which is 6.3 or 6.4. That means the other leg is also going to be 6.4 because they are the same thing. Again, I will not always draw the triangle in this way. It could be rotated, it could be flipped, it could be upside down. So you have to always find a reference point. Where is the hypotenuse? Okay, and that will help you to see which direction you're going. Okay. Now there was a request on going over on number 5 from this. So if you're looking at number 5, now this 6 is a hypotenuse, isn't it? This is a hypotenuse. That means you can go back to the short leg because the short leg is half or divide by 2 of the hypotenuse. Again, take a look right here. What's the relationship between hypotenuse and the leg? It's clean. It's double or half, isn't it? Okay, so that's what we have. So it's going to be 3. So x is going to be 3. Now, if this is 3, now how do we get back to the other leg? And that's a multiply, right? Because you're going from short to long. If you want to figure out the longer side, you're going to multiply. Just remember that. That's another clue. If you're going from a long to short, then you have to divide by something. But in this case, you're going to multiply by square root of 3. So the answer will be, for y, it's going to be 3 square root of 3. How did you do, Stephanie? Was that all right? Did you do okay? Or maybe you just need to do a little correction, right? Does anybody have any questions? I don't know where you are. Yeah, you doing okay? So again, I hope this diagram right here is helpful to you. If you came in late, you might want to just snap a picture and then transfer that in your notes. Okay, does anybody need any more time on writing the notes? You guys doing okay? Okay, let's move on. So I'd like to talk about the last section unit of the unit, which is on Pythagorean theorem. Has anybody heard this before, Pythagorean theorem? If you don't remember that, has anybody heard a squared plus b squared equals c squared? Has anybody heard that before? Okay, you've had. And in other class, it was kind of like a half and a half. Some of them have heard it before, some of them haven't. And so I would like to go over on that. Again, maybe it's a review for some of you, but I hope you bear with me and hopefully you can help us out and contribute, okay? Now, Pythagorean theorem says this. Smoke car? It's on my dresser. Don't take the whole thing. Oh, wait a second. Hang on a second, guys. Hey, man. All right, I'm sorry, guys. So the Pythagorean theorem says a squared. So let's write it down. You don't need to write this whole thing. Well, let me read that first, okay? Because it's confusing, but it really isn't, okay? It says in the right triangle. So Pythagorean theorem, first of all, has to do with a right triangle, okay? Pythagorean theorem, triangle needs to be a right triangle. Otherwise, there's no point of applying Pythagorean theorem. If it's just like let's say like this one, if it's not right triangle, you cannot apply Pythagorean theorem. Okay, so it has to be a right triangle, and the square of the length of the hypotenuse is equal to the sum of the square of the length of the legs. Now, it sounds really complicated, but what it is the hypotenuse, which is C. Well, let's write this down. A squared plus B squared equals C squared. if you square a leg, and if you square another leg, because so A and B are leg, and B is also leg, and C is a hypotenuse. If you square the leg and you add another square of the other leg, that will be equal to hypotenuse squared. In other words, okay, this is what it really means, a Pythagorean theorem. It's a very clever theorem that people discovered, not recently, but even from ancient, all the civilization, Chinese people knew about it, Egyptian knew about it, okay? What it means is this: if you have a square of a hypotenuse, which is, square means it's a square, right? Literally, it's a square of the hypotenuse. That is area of the c squared, which is that green part, is going to be equal to this is the a squared plus b squared. If you add purple area, a squared, and the green b area, light green b squared, that area combined, two square combined, is going to be equal to the big square, green square. Okay, that's what the Pythagorean theorem is. So let me, hypotenuse. So it looks like some of you have heard it before. Looks like some of you haven't. Okay, but let's go over on that. Okay, so for example, is everybody ready to do example number 1? Here it is. So, and I think you will find this easier than SOHCAHTOA problem, okay? Now, first of all, you look at this triangle, just ask yourself, is this a right triangle? Yeah, it is. Look at it right here. There's a 90 degree. So this is a right triangle. And does it involve all 3 sides? Yeah, it's got all 3 sides. There's no angle measurements. So you can't use a SOHCAHTOA because there's nothing on focus angle. There is no information about the angle measurement besides 90 degree. That's all we know. We don't know any of the focus angle information, okay? We could actually figure it out by inverse of 5 and 12, but that's a lot of work, okay? We could actually use SOHCAHTOA to figure out x, but we are not going to do that, okay? But since we have 2 measurements and then 1 missing as a measurement, we can use Pythagorean theorem. The first step is to identify which one is A, which one is B, and which one is C. Because the Pythagorean theorem says a squared plus b squared equals c squared, right? Now c is the hypotenuse. Now out of those 3, 5, 12, and x, which one is the hypotenuse, guys? Is it the 5? Is it the 12? Or is it the x? Very good, thank you guys. X is the hypotenuse, isn't it? because it's the side across from 90 degrees. That's the hypotenuse. So that means that's a C, okay? That's the hypotenuse. In other words, 5 and 12 are going to be A and B. Could you have named 12 as A and 5 as a B? The answer is yes, you can. It doesn't really matter which one is A and B, as long as you're naming hypotenuse as a C, then you will be okay. Now let's set it up. Now equation, the formula says A squared plus B squared equals C squared, right? So let's plug in. So A, which is a 5, so it will be 5 squared plus B is, what's B? 12 squared equals, and what's C? C is the unknown, x squared. Does that make sense? Are you able to set it up like that? Next, let's take it further. What is a 5 squared? Take out your calculator. Well, 5 squared means 5 times 5, which is 25, isn't it? Very good. Thank you, Lawrence, Stephanie. Now, if you're not quite confident on how to figure out, you can use a calculator. Now, do you see the square button? Mine is, it says x to the second power. That's the square button. Maybe some of your calculator would say, I don't know, y to the x. No, that's an exponent. So it should say something like this. Okay, so I will type now. So I do 5, and then the square button, which is this one. And I get, so do you see that? 5 squared, press enter, which is 25, okay? It's not 10. It's a very common mistake. Don't do 5 times 2. It's a 5 times 5, right? 2 times. So that's 25. Does anybody know what 12 squared is? 12 squared is 144. Thank you, Lawrence. Logan equals x squared. Now let's simplify. Now 12, 25, and 144, they're on the same side of the equation, isn't it? Let's just combine that. What's 25 plus 144? 169 equals x squared. Now we are almost done. We want to solve for x. So far we've got x squared. How do we get rid of this square? What do you think you have to do? Anybody? I want to get rid of this square so that my answer, my equation will say x equals. I don't want that square. How do you get rid of that little 2? In order to get rid of the square, you're going to square root it. I know we haven't really talked about, in geometry, we are not going to talk about, square, cube root, or fourth root, lots of, those are in geometry, algebra topic, right? So I'm not going to talk about that too much, but to cancel out square and square root, they cancel each other. So if you have a square and if you want to get rid of it, you better introduce square root on both sides. So now x equals square root of 169. Now, how do we do that? I want you to find the symbol like this right here. That's a square root, and mine is right there in the yellow font. That means I better press second and square button. So I do second square, and I get square root showing up. And then 169. Square root of 169 is 13. Nice job, Brandon. So x equals 13. Are you starting to remember what you did in over, I don't know, when you were in maybe middle school? I don't know when you did the Pythagorean theorem last time. Oh no, you should have done this in algebra 1, right? Maybe some of you are in accelerated math class in middle school, or maybe you took algebra 1 last year, right? But if you don't remember, or if you have never done this before, don't worry, okay? Let's do another one. Okay, so again, anytime if you, again, the right triangle could be rotated, upside down, flipped. So let's make sure that we identify hypotenuse. Which one represents the hypotenuse? Is it 7? Is it x? Or is it 14? Excuse me. The hypotenuse is the side across from 90 degrees. So the hypotenuse is 14. That means C is going to be 14. And then A and B are 7 and X. Again, you could call X as an A, 7 as a B. It doesn't matter, as long as you identify hypotenuse correctly. Now let's set it up. Again, the Pythagorean theorem. By the way, Pythagorean theorem, Pythagorean is coming from the ancient, the philosopher and mathematician, Pythagoras. And that's where the name is coming from. So let's apply that. So A is 7. So it's going to be 7 squared plus B, which is x squared, equals C squared. C is 14. 14 squared. Now let's evaluate numbers that we can. 7 squared. What's a 7 squared? 7 times 7, 49. X squared is just x squared for now. How about 14 squared? Can somebody figure it out? I think it's 196. 14 squared is 1, isn't it 196? Now, what do? This time you have 49 and 196. They are separated by equal sign. One is on the left side, one is on the right side. Last time we've had the numbers all in one side. So we could just add them together, right? We added 25 and 144 together because they were on the same team, right? Same side. But this time it's not. So since we are solving for x, let's get rid of 49 by subtracting 49 on both sides. And that cancels out. So now we've got x squared equals, what is it? Well, no, 49. What did I put? 46. Equals 147. 147. And then the last step, how do we get rid of this square? You're going to take square root. So let's take square root. That cancels out. So you got to take a square root on the other side too. You got to do the same thing, always both sides of equal sign, right? So now x equals square root of 147. Sorry guys. So square root 147, 12.1. How did you guys do? Does that make sense, the flow of the question? Okay. Does anybody need more time to write this down? Copy this down? Anybody? Just say need more time or something. I'll wait for you. Otherwise, we'll move on to the assignment. I'm gonna get a cup of water, okay? And we'll be right back and we'll get started on the assignment. All right, let's get started on the assignment. There are only 6 problems. Okay. Let's get started on from number 1. Is everybody ready? You guys okay? Getting tired, maybe he's a little sleepy. I'm just wondering if anybody is laying on bed right now. I don't know. Is it wrong to assume that maybe some of you are laying on the bed? Because I've seen my son listening to the teacher on his phone, and he's still in bed. Has anybody done that before? Okay. Well, I don't care whether you're in bed or not, as long as you can participate. Yeah. So let's get started on number 1. Okay. So again, in any of the problem, the first step is to identify which one is A, B, or C. So let's try that. So number one, which one is the hypotenuse? That's the most critical part of all of this. Hypotenuse is this 10, isn't it? Yeah, very good, Harley. Thank you. So that's a C. C is going to be 10. And then A and B are X and 8, respectively. So now let's set it up. A squared plus B squared equals C squared. So what is A? A is X, right? So you do X squared plus, what's B? 8 squared equals, what's a C? 10 squared. Am I talking too much? So why don't you finish that? I'll give you 30 seconds. So what do you do after that? Okay, how did it go? So 8x squared is just x squared. 8 squared is 8 times 8. That's a what is it, 64? And 10 squared is 10 times 10, which is 100. Now 64 and 100, they are on the separate side. Since you want to find out what x is, I'm going to subtract 64. So we've got x squared equals 36. Did you guys get that? Okay, nice job, Logan. And then the last step is you take square root, because square and square root cancel out. So now we've got x equals square root of 36, which is 6. So the answer is 6. Okay. Number 2, why don't you try that all by yourself? Okay. I'll give you 1 minute. Okay. Go. Okay, somebody just send me an email. Somebody's computer just crashed, and so he was asking me but I will be uploading the video, so I'll just replying to that email. Okay. Hopefully your computer is working out all right. Okay, so first we identify the hypotenuse because that's going to be C, and that's the hypotenuse. X is the hypotenuse. That means 9 and 40 are A and B. Okay, is that how you set it up? That means 9 squared plus 40 squared equals X squared. Is that how you set it up? Okay. Now, what is 9 squared? That's 9 times 9. That's 81. 40 squared is 4 times 4 is 16, but multiply that. So that's a 1600. That's a pretty big number. Then equals X squared. Yeah, again, that's a good question. Keep your question coming, okay? A and B, it doesn't matter which one you call A or B. You could call 9 as a B and a 40 as a A. But as long as you identify hypotenuse as a hypotenuse, then it doesn't matter. So it will be, so you can add them together. They're on the same side. So it's a 1681 equals X squared. And now you take square root. That cancels out. That cancels out. So X equals square root of 1681. What is that? 41. Very good. Thank you, Logan. 41. X equals 41. Are you guys getting the hang of this? Somewhat? Let's work on number 3. Let's do this one together one more time, okay? So let's do this one step at a time. Okay, I'm gonna ask you a question and you tell me, okay, which number is going to be representing hypotenuse? Which one is the hypotenuse? Is it 4? Is it X? Or is it 8? Which one is it? Can you, everybody tell me that? Hypotenuse is 8, isn't it? That's a hypotenuse. That means 4 and X are A and B, because hypotenuse is always C. So the other ones need to be X and A and B. Next, I want you to set up an equation. Equation says A squared plus B squared equals C squared, right? So replace A, B, and C with numbers and X. What's A? It will be, A is 4, right? So it will be 4 squared plus, what's B? B is X, right? B is X. X squared equals, what's a C? 8 squared. Okay. What are we going to do next? We're going to evaluate all the S square number. What's a 4 squared? 4 squared is 16. What's 8 squared? 64. Now, what are you going to do next? You're going to, what are you thinking? We're going to subtract 16 from both sides. And you will get X squared equals, what is it, 48? 48. And the last step is to take square root. So the answer is square root x equals square root of 48. It's 6.9. Okay, let's keep going. You guys doing okay? Tired, probably. Stand up. Huh. Okay, let's do number 4. And I'll give you 1 minute. Okay. Will you guys share the answer for number 4 in the chat? What did you guys get for x? Anybody? It's been about a minute. Okay.
I have a question.
Yeah. Go ahead.
For number 6, do we just solve it regularly?
Say that again for number 6.
Do we just solve it like we solved all the other ones, or do you do it
Yeah.
differently? Okay.
No, just do a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Okay, I'm seeing little different numbers. So let's take a look, okay? And again, remember, making mistakes is part of a learning process, yeah? So first, the hypotenuse is right here, x. So that's a c. So x is gonna be c. That means a and b are over here. So we've got 65 squared plus 72 squared. That's gonna be equal to x squared. Do you have that first? Now, let's see. What's 65 squared? That's 4,225. And 72 squared is 5184. And they are on the same side, so you can just combine them together. What's 4,225 plus 5,184? They are 9,409 is equal to x squared. Yeah, is that what the mistake was? So you probably did everything correct. Just a number, right? Yeah, it's kind of hard to see, isn't it? Yeah, it's 65. So if you thought that's 55, probably your answer is correct. Okay, so then we take square root. So x equals Square root of that, 97. Very good. Okay, let's finish this up. 2 more, okay? And then we'll be done. 20 minutes to go. I don't think we need 20 more minutes for that. Set it up. I'm going to give you 1 minute, okay? I think I need a haircut. Who cut your hair? Do you go to barber shop, salon? What do you call it? Beauties. Yeah, barber shop. Okay, very good, Lawrence. Nice job. How often do you guys get haircut? All right, let's take a look. Again, where is the hypotenuse? Hypotenuse is this 9, right? That means the other ones are A and B. Okay, so I'm going to call X as A, 6 as B. So A squared, which is X squared, plus B squared, 6 squared, equals C squared. C is always the hypotenuse. So that would be 9 squared. Six squared is 36. 9 squared is 81. So we have to, this time there, 36 and 81 are not on the same side. They are separated. And so in this case, we've got to subtract 36 from both sides. That will cancel out. So we've got x squared equals 40, what is it, 45. So you take square root, and that cancels out. X equals square root of 45. So what is that? 6 point something, right? Square root of 45. 6.7. Very good. Okay, let's take a look. The last question. Again, you do this all by yourself. What is going to be the C? Can you solve that? Okay, we're almost done, guys. My daughter just came back from Japan a couple weeks ago. She was doing some volunteer work for the church, and she brought me this sushi pen. Can you guys see that? Sushi pen. I've been using that. All right. Okay, so let's set it up. So the hypotenuse is that one. So that's a C, right? C is a C. But A and B are 3 and 2. So 3 squared plus 2 squared equals C squared. That's 9, and that's 4. And 9 plus 4, they are on the same side. That's 13. You can just combine that. So you take square root. So C equals square root of 13. What is that? 3.6. If you are still have a questions, if you are want to go over, if you want me to explain a little bit more, please remain in the class. We still have about 10 minutes in the class. Otherwise, please make sure that you take a picture of this and then submit in Canvas. Now, Kelsey, you've got a question. Now, well, so yeah, I'm going to dismiss you guys. You guys have a great day. Kelsey, you stay here and I'll answer your question. You guys have a great day and we'll see you guys tomorrow. So, Kelsey, are you still here? Yeah. And you are new, right? You joined us on Tuesday. Yesterday. Was yesterday the first day? Yeah. So I don't have the notes by itself in Canvas. However, I have all the recording